there was a thread on Reddit. I actually somebody mentioned, and this is how I caught wind of this. I went viral on Reddit, you guys. So I think it was, I don't know how many streams ago it was, but I'm sure everybody here who tunes into the streams daily, you do remember, correct? The Sweden forced integration monologue I did a few weeks ago about the migrants that were being placed in the Swedish homes, whether the locals wanted them or not. Well, apparently, somebody actually mentioned it, that it went viral on Reddit, and I went over there to read it. And it was some leftist right on Reddit posting it in a thread, and it was titled something like, there's a lot of propaganda, or is there a lot of propaganda in falsehoods about your country online? And they were linking my video directly. So the video I did essentially was spreading far-right misinformation, and that was proof to them. And when you look through the comment section, it was exactly what you'd expect. Far-right, loon, Trump-tard, Trump lover, MAGA, maggot propagandist. Sweden is literally a utopia, and everyone saying otherwise is a racist and spreading lies. That's Reddit in a nutshell for you. And if you've been paying attention online, that aged like fucking milk that's been in the sun for 10 years, okay? It turned into some fucking mold. Because the story just broke from Sweden. That's so fucking wild, dude. So grotesque that even Reddit progressive shitheads have to confront what their ideology creates. Though they probably won't, because we know what it's like. Requiring, or I should say, that would require admitting they're evil. And, their fucking Reddit brains, their leftoid brains cannot process that without breaking apart in, a million pieces. Their worldview shatters around them. So, September 1st, you have this poor girl. A 16-year-old Maya Aberg was walking home, right, from her McDonald's shift, missed her bus, cuts through a pedestrian tunnel when an 18-year-old Eritrean refugee named Yazid Muhammad, shocker, grabs her, drags her down, takes her phone, pins her to the ground, and rapes her while she's fighting to get away. Not a new story for Sweden. One of many. She breaks free. She runs home crying. Family reports the shit immediately because they believe in the system. And good old Muhammad, he gets arrested and convicted of rape and sentenced to 3 years in prison. Only 3 years. But wait, because it gets way worse. Prosecutors asked for deportation because he's a refugee who's raped a Swedish child. And maybe Sweden shouldn't have, been keeping kind of rapists in their country, correct? Right? It seems pretty reasonable that you should deport these people that commit heinous crimes, like immediately. Okay. Court of Appeal says no. They uphold the conviction, but they reject deportation. And here's the part that made me read it like 5 times. I couldn't even believe what I was seeing. Swedish judges actually put this in writing. They said the rape in general, in many cases, is serious enough for deportation, but given the nature and duration of this specific incident, it didn't constitute an exceptionally serious offense, warranting removal from the country. The duration, you guys, the duration. The Swedish judges with stopwatches now, that's what we got. Stopwatch judges that are timing how long a 16-year-old was raped to determine what qualifies for deportation. Like they're judging a fucking Olympic event where the rapist didn't quite make the threshold for the time and he gets to stay. This is the West. Okay. Didn't last long enough, Muhammad. You get to stay, bro. It's all good. Just remember, guys, 5 minutes or less, and Sweden is ripe for the taking. Get your blonde woman, anyone you want, 5 minutes or less. Yeah. What is the fucking threshold here? 5 minutes? 10 minutes? Should he have beaten her worse? Should he have done more damage to her body in order to qualify? Is there a manual somewhere in Swedish courtrooms, right, listing exactly how many seconds of rape equals to deportation? Because apparently, however long Muhammad raped Maya Aberg, that's her name, Aberg. I hope I'm saying that right, because I'm going to say her name often here instead of saying she. Well, the court decided, right, that he gets to stay because it wasn't long enough. So he's going to collect more welfare after his 3 years, while his victim lives in terror for the rest of her life and in fear of running into him. And it keeps getting worse. I'm sorry to say, but it keeps getting worse. This isn't some procedural error. One of the appellate panel members was a woman named Lena Berggren. This is a woman from the far left party, right, whose academic career is studying, you won't believe this, racism and nationalism. And she sat there and decided that the Eritrean refugee who raped a 16-year-old Swedish girl gets to stay because the assault wasn't long enough. A far left judge, and a female judge. So much for sticking up for women. We have a woman who was presumably, or we should say, spent her entire career, her life, benefiting from feminist movements that fought to protect women from male violence. And she looked at a 16-year-old victim and thought protecting her multicultural fantasy mattered more. This spiteful academic cunt, and that's putting it a nice way, because if you look at her, she looks exactly like you would expect. This young 16-year-old woman, this young girl, versus they have a picture on X next to what the judge looks like, and is exactly what you would think. Exactly. You have young, beautiful woman, and then you have absolute harpy hag cave troll. So she looks at a destroyed child and saw an opportunity to prove her anti-racist credentials, and then to sacrifice this girl on the altar of her ideology without a second thought, because Maya, I think her name was, Aberg, right, doesn't validate Berggren's worldview, but protecting refugee rapists does. And this is the problem with all these leftists, is that the locals don't matter because they're considered privileged. So Berggren looks exactly like fucking she sounds. Berggren probably went home that night feeling proud of herself, right, for standing up to racism. Probably told her colleagues over wine about her brave decision, right, she made to protect a vulnerable refugee from deportation. She probably sleeps really fine at night, and she knows that a 16-year-old has been condemned to a lifelong trauma, and that person might actually run into a rapist at her grocery store just a few years later because Berggren's diseased mind thinks that refugee rights are more important than Swedish daughters. Do you understand what this means here? We cannot coexist with leftists. I'm starting, literally, there's I think a voice in my head that grows louder every day. We cannot coexist with these people. I'm starting to develop an idea that I'd rather be around nationalists and far-right people of every race and creed. I can trust a pro-black, a black nationalist, Asian nationalist, white nationalist, any nationalist of any creed, race, whatever, I can trust because I know their intentions are pure, simple, and out there for everybody else. They want to do right for their people and get their people ahead. That's respectable. But a BLM black, a white leftist, a white liberal, these people are literal enemies of their own kind. A white liberal destroys white culture the most. A black liberal destroys more black lives than anything else. I could be on the side of a pro-black, of a black nationalist, because I know I can have a straightforward conversation. They want strong families. They want fathers in the neighborhoods, in the households. They want jobs, a good economy, and a future for their children. That's considered radical. I can handshake with that man and work on building a future together. But with these leftists, you can't. They have no soul. They are demon-possessed. These creatures, they're sick in their heads. They say one thing and then ignore the reality around them of what's happening. So you have this barren, ideological ghoul of a woman who's wearing robes, considering herself a judge that has decided her academic theories about nationalism being bad were more valuable than this child's safety. Can you imagine that? And the Swedish system gave her the power to enforce this decision. This poor girl. So Maya, her youth was stolen. Her purity got stolen. Her innocence stolen, destroyed by an Eritrean savage who the Swedish elites, in this case, decided deserves protection because deporting him might look racist. And looking racist, you guys, is worse than letting children suffer. This is what the leftists want. I saw another headline today. This one was in America. So while we're laughing at Sweden, in America, 2 African migrants also raped a 16-year-old, I believe she was. I don't remember. A 16-year-old in Utah, and were given something like probation. Look it up. And this poor girl, by the way, there's an interview of her on X, and she's describing what happened to her and how the justice system failed her. And she missed more than half of her school year, you guys, because she kept seeing Muhammad at school. hear me on it. She got assaulted and then sees him at school. Nobody separated them. Her education was destroyed along with everything else. While he just about went life, unhinged, or I should say, unbothered by anything until the trial. So he actively assaulted somebody, and until the trial, they were forced to be essentially together in the same school. Wow. So, and now after 3 years, because that's all he got sentenced to, he's going to be released back into her town, and she has to live knowing all of that because some Swedish judges measured how long he raped her and decided it wasn't serious enough. So within 3 years, he's going to be back out on the streets. Go fuck yourself. Imagine being the father of this woman. Imagine being the mother of this woman. Imagine being in the community. And they tried very hard to hide this story. Very hard. And their family, they're doing everything they can for her. They're doing fundraisers right through charities for therapy. That's going to cost tens of thousands of dollars for her because the trauma is so severe. She's going to need professional help, guys. And this is something that lasts for a lifetime. Probably, yeah, her entire life. It's not like rape victims are just going to get over it because some bitter academic decided that the assault was, not long enough to matter. Do you think in her mind it wasn't long enough to be a big deal? Think about that, dude. Maya's family is now begging for charity money to pay for therapy trauma that the Swedish judges decided wasn't serious enough to remove the man that caused it. They're funding their daughter's psychological treatment. This is crazy. While her rapist was funded by Swedish taxpayers, after his release, he's living on welfare in the same town as the victim because Lena, the fucking ghoul Berggren, thought that is justice in her leftist deranged brain. And those same fucking Reddit leftists that were calling my Swedish reporting propaganda, where are they now? Where are they now? Still in their echo chambers. They're still doubling down, right? Explaining probably the excuses. This is a one-time incident, you guys. It's isolated incidents, just like peaceful protest, right? Now, the real story is Swedish racism, how we need more integration programs instead of deportations. Just remember, ladies, wear the little Nazi patch on your hand that says, please don't touch me there. This is my no-no patch. And then go and have bacon and eggs and muffins with the local drug dealers in the gangs so that you can convince them through a talk and some massages that it's better to lead a straight life than the gang criminal life. Sweden is a fucking joke of a country. Literally, these smug, and for all of them in total, the entire smug progressive cocksuckers, all of them who will call people like me a liar, that are defending a system that destroyed Maya's life. And they know it. But admitting they were wrong would shatter their entire identity. These enlightened humanitarians, as they like to call themselves. So they'll keep fucking lying and gaslighting all of us. We see what's happening in our streets. The women are screaming for help. It's even bad for the boys. I'll read a story in a little bit about that too. Because they're being humiliated. They have humiliation robberies. Dude, Sweden has taken in over 2.5 million immigrants since 2015 in a country of 10 million people. And 63%, the numbers are so horrible, 63% of the convicted rapists are foreign-born or second generation. And 73% of stranger rapes involves non-native perpetrators, according to Sweden's own crime stats. And those are only the crime stats that they're reporting because the rest would be too racist to report on. Remember from the last one, they have a special designation for crimes when it involves non-Swedes in order to bury the numbers so the statistics don't seem worse than they actually are. But pointing that out makes you far right, apparently, in their eyes, even when Swedish courts are literally timing rapes to determine deportation eligibility. Can you, dude, I'm telling you, when I read that, we're at a point in Europe where literally they made a meme about it as a police officer just sitting there with a stopwatch while a woman's getting assaulted. This is where we are. They're gaslighting us this hard. This is treason. These judges should be put to death. They are directly responsible. Once that kid gets out in 3 years, he's a grown-ass man, 18 years old, who assaulted an underage woman. Once he gets out in 3 years, if he does it again, and if he kills somebody next time, the judge should be responsible for that. These judges that are soft on crime should be held responsible for every one of these repeat offenders that they're letting out. I think that's more fair than anything else. Make the judges responsible for all this shit. Let me get this Reddit post up too. Anyways, it's a joke. This isn't even unusual to report on anymore. And it's not even unusual based on all the numbers I've been digging up here. In 2019, an Eritrean gang, they raped, listen to this, there were teens that were being held captive for hours. No deportations because integration potential, right? And they were assaulting them. In 2024, you had Afghan and Somali caregivers doing the same thing to elderly people with dementia. We're talking patients in nursing homes. They were raping them too. That's insane, dude. Elderly people with dementia in nursing homes. And they wouldn't deport them because they got their citizenship. This is Sweden, you guys. 2023, Syrian migrant, same shit, with a 15-year-old girl at knife point. He got paroled early after claiming Christianity conversion, which those spineless church cocksuckers actually bought. The Swedish elites have created a system here where the refugee rapists know that they can literally assault Swedish women and girls with minimal consequences as long as they keep it brief enough. Can you imagine this, dude? A 2-pump chump and you're off free. And judges like this Berggren enforce that system while congratulating themselves on their compassion. So your Swedish daughters and everybody else's daughters, where they're bringing in this multiculturalism all around Europe and including the United States, are being assaulted at the helm are the elites that are instituting all these policies. These people that live in these gated communities where they're away from their own horrible, what do you call these? What could you say these are? Luxury beliefs that they're imparting and forcing on the rest of society so they can feel morally superior. And those elites are measuring the duration of the rapes to determine which victim deserves justice. We're living in their world, their twisted world. That's evil. Choosing to keep a child rapist in the country because the rape wasn't long enough is an evil decision made by evil people. And this cave troll of a fucking woman, Berggren, is evil, regardless of how many papers she published on racism. I don't give a fuck. That woman looked at the evidence of a 16-year-old being assaulted and decided that her academic theories were more important than the girl's justice. And somewhere deep down, she knows exactly what she did and she's fine with it because Maya's life is destroyed. And that's acceptable price for maintaining the multicultural project in Sweden. And Swedish fathers, dude, what can you say about it? They're watching their daughters become targets while being told that noticing these patterns makes them extremists, makes them far right. And Swedish mothers are literally forced to escort their daughters everywhere, living in constant fear, while politicians say the real problem is xenophobia. Where have we heard that before? As if more funding would have stopped Muhammad from dragging Maya into that tunnel and having his way with her. So what's the message here? If you're a refugee in Sweden and you rape someone, keep it brief, bro. 2-pump, chump it up. And you probably won't get deported. Okay? Have a stopwatch on you. Make sure your heart rate doesn't get too high. Make sure you let her go after a couple of minutes. And that's great. That's great. This is the deterrent that Swedish judges just created. And every refugee assaulter in Sweden now knows the formula. Couple minutes, not serious enough. You can go around a couple minutes and assault as many women as you want. You will never be deported. We welcome you into our cultural utopia. This is what happens when you're 10 million people and you imported 2.5 million from cultures no less where women are literal property. And they did nothing to enforce the so-called integration, right? You built a welfare system after inviting these people that literally rewards their dependency. You allowed them to create no-go zones where Swedish law barely applies. And now Swedish women are paying the price while judges like Berggren ensure that perpetrators face zero consequences. Zero. 16 years old, you guys. And you got told that your rape didn't last long enough to warrant justice. How vigilantes don't crop up from cases like this will be a shock to me. I don't know how pacified the Swedes have become, how extreme their pacification is, but if you don't feel a tinge of rage reading headlines like that and looking at that girl's story, I don't even know what to tell you. You have no soul. There's no life behind those eyes. Swedish judges are timing your assault. That's insane. Can you even say that out loud without like, huh? What? Is this a Onion article? Is this the B? And then you know what's insane? So not only do the Swedish judges time your assault, dude, and they decided you get no justice because it's not serious, but then you have to see him at school, at the store, on the street, released back into your community because this fucking piece of shit Berggren decided his refugee status was more important than your safety. This is what those Reddit leftists and leftists in general are defending. One, they're calling me talking about Sweden propaganda. Every time they try to deny the problem, every time they call critics racist, they enabled this system that sacrificed Maya. They're not ignorant. They're choosing to deny reality because reality threatens their identity as enlightened cosmopolitans. And Swedish rape victims are acceptable collateral damage for these people, right? They looked at My Sweden piece, for example, and they thought like, this can't be true because if it's true, then we've been wrong about everything. And their egos, there's no way a liberal's egos could handle something like that. So calling me a liar and everybody else who talks about stuff like this far right and brainwashed is how they're able to cope with the bullshit that they have to live with right in front of them all the times. And now we have this Maya, this poor girl, is living proof that they're wrong. Still will not admit it. It's an isolated case. So they'll keep lying. They'll keep calling people like me, like you watching, like anybody else who's against mass immigration, far-right extremists. They will keep defending this system that measures rape duration to determine deportation eligibility. And Swedish girls will keep getting assaulted by these Mohammeds who know that they'll get to stay as long as they're quick enough about it. This is Sweden 2025. Either you think rapists should be deported, or you think timing assaults to keep them brief enough to stay is acceptable policy. And if you think the latter, you're enabling sexual predators and you're hiding behind humanitarian language to justify it. These leftists aren't just wrong. They're complicit. They're cowards who sacrifice Swedish daughters to protect their egos. Moral degenerates who value ideological purity more than the safety of their own children. And most of these leftists don't even have children. That's what makes them these spineless worms who will watch girls get raped rather than admit they were wrong about immigration. And judges, exactly like the woman, Berggren, are even worse because they have the power to stop this and they choose not to. That woman could have deported Mohammed, could have sent a message that refugee rapists won't be tolerated. You could have protected Maya and every other Swedish girl, but she didn't. She chose her ideology over the girl's safety. And she'll face no consequences for it because the Swedish system rewards her betrayal as enlightened jurisprudence. This is Sweden 2025, living under the Democrat leftist utopia. This is socialism. This is what they do. They reward criminals and punish the innocent. And this is why I say the voice in my head is getting louder. I don't think that we can coexist with these people. And these are just the cases we know about. So remember, it's not just women. Let me read this real quick. I wanted to, because the story, it just keeps getting worse. So I have it pulled up here. Okay. So what it says is, male Swedish teenagers are not in a good situation either. The Muslim immigrants attack them in gangs. They rob them, hold a knife to them, force them to beg for their lives. They beat the Swedish boys, often very brutally, force them to strip naked and urinate on them. To be clear, this is not one case. It is widespread phenomenon called humiliation robberies. Humiliation robberies. This is what Swedish people have wrought on their own children. Like with Maya's rapists, the sentences are ridiculously lenient. The teenage perpetrators behave like mafiosi, police say. The robberies are a demonstration of power. If the robbers are caught, they laugh at the police because the penalties for the crimes are so insignificant due to the young age of the perpetrators. And it says here, the humiliation robberies have recently caused much consternation in Sweden. In Gothenburg, a criminal gang of youths forced their victims to kiss the gang leader's feet while they filmed him. After that, they stomped on his face until he passed out. In Stockholm, two 16-year-olds robbed punched, and kicked their 18-year-old victim for hours. At the end of the ordeal, they took him behind a church where one of the perpetrators urinated on him while they called him names such as fucking Swede. They then forced him to take his clothes off while laughing mockingly at him. The victim, only known as Liam, told Swedish TV, the two 16-year-olds filmed the incident and spread it on social media. Keeps going. The parents of one of the perpetrators came to Sweden 6 years ago from an unspecified African country, according to Swedish TV, who interviewed them in February. The parents both work and said their son lacks for nothing. The mother wore a hijab during the interview. It keeps going. A common scenario is that one of the robbers holds a knife pressed against the victim, while the others rob him of his mobile phone, bank card, money, etc. The victim is frightened and dare not do anything but give up the requested items. If he doesn't give up, he'll be beaten, often very brutally. Humiliation of the victims is not infrequently included in the picture. If it's a boy, it is about breaking his self-esteem. He is forced to cry, give up his shoes, even undress naked, kneel, and plead for his life. For the girls, or for the girl victims, sexual. Tribe and train, which way? Which way, Western man? You're going to have to ask yourself. You could one day walk down the street and be a victim. Are you training? Are you going to the gym? Are you going to a sports gym? Are you training boxing, kickboxing, MMA, Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu? Do you keep your head on a swivel at night? Hell, even during the day when you're walking around, when you're alone? Or do you have your earbuds on? Will you help your fellow brother when he gets in trouble, when he's attacked by one of these savages? The choice was taken away from you when our government started failing our people. Do you understand? So what I'm saying to all the brothers and sisters out there, do not allow yourself to be a victim. The government will not save you. The justice system will not give you justice. You live in a treasonous era where the leaders of your own country want you erased, want their ideologies pushed at your expense, and will destroy you and everything you love to bring forth their one world utopic government. You will own nothing. You will be happy. We will force you to integrate. I don't care. Whatever they say, the names they give themselves, their motives are clear. You are to be exterminated, to be broken to the point where you will even stand up morally degraded and shattered. They want to shatter your confidence. If we want to make a change, apart from physically getting your mind and your body right, you need to get into the halls of power. I keep telling you this all the time. Read often. Engage in civic duties at the local level. Move up at the city and the state level. Move up into the national to the federal level. If you don't, you will lose your country forever. One man and one woman, doesn't matter, will not change any of this. Your fellow man, your leftist compatriots are selling your country out, your culture out, your people and your history out from up under your feet. The system wasn't designed for people like this on the inside to literally cause a rot and destroy everything our forefathers bled and fought for. They win when you don't care. They win when they've morally broken you. So you accept their degeneracy. They win when they completely shatter any hope you have left. Don't let them do that. Don't let these people get away with crimes like this. Make it uncomfortable for them to support stuff like this. Make it so toxic that anybody that espouses leftist beliefs never comes into power ever again. Or you could be next. Maybe in the future, your daughter could be next. Your grandmother could be next. Your father could be next. Your brother could be brutally beaten, humiliated, pissed on, shared on social media. Didn't even do anything, victimless. Walked around, minded their own business, and it turns into the worst day of your life. These people are animals. These criminals who commit these crimes should be put down like the animals that they are. I don't know why we did away with the death penalty. Savages understand one language only, violence.